Well, this is a really special session because we get people who have actually achieved and taken big steps. So it's a chance to say, hey, how did you do that, and what can we learn from that? Well, I'm really delighted to invite Helen to speak first. We all know Ockham, and what was really exciting about this latest development was not only 10-star Homestar, so the highest for apartments in New Zealand, but also, more importantly, really annoying to Mike Hosking. So I don't know which gets more plaudits, but Helen, I'm delighted to welcome you to the stage to speak. Thanks.
Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou e nā kaumātua e Ngāti Whātua o Ōrākei, una I whāhoki. Ki ko Helen O'Sullivan tōko ingoa. Ko aho te kaiwhakahaere mātua o Ockham Residential. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you, Andrew, for that introduction. As you mentioned, this daisy is as lambasted by Mike Hosking. Just to clear up one issue, it is not an anti-car development. Ockham are not anti-car. I'm in fact a petrol head myself. But in fact, the option of daisy was largely around car parking will cost around about, in a medium density development like this, around about $100,000 per car park. And the price points at daisy raised from 410 to 700 and something, which made it a much more affordable option than is generally the case in Auckland real estate. So daisy is 33 apartments on 600 square metres in Mount Eden, so great use of land, and it meant that our land cost per unit was considerably lower than is usually the case. For us, in a medium density model, land is not the issue. Our land costs are between 10 and 12% of the total build cost. So getting those numbers down is actually, getting build costs down is actually more important for us. There's no private car parking. There are 2 shared cars run through the City Hop scheme. Basement parking for 12 scooters and 48 bicycles. And as Andrew mentioned, it's the first 10 Homestar built rating for an apartment building in New Zealand. Until very recently, we were the only built building in Auckland, but I'm very pleased to discover this morning that someone has done a renovation in Auckland that's now 10 Homestar built, so congratulations to them. Key sustainability features. Have we got one more? Thank you. Higher than code insulation values between the apartments. This is important for us both on a warmth and also noise transmission basis. I own and live in an Ockham apartment, and I can attest that I don't hear my neighbours, and more to the point, they don't hear me, which is for them a good thing. The double glazing optimised for solar control. Interestingly, the heat gain management is almost more important than anything else. There are solar blinds also, which are what they call user activated, which means you wind them down yourself. Individual Zender heat recovery and ventilation systems in each of the apartments, which doesn't quite, as Martin incorrectly led me to believe, mean you can heat the place with a heated towel rail, but nearly. It does also reduce the humidity and the need for heating in winter. Interestingly, again, the management of humidity internally in these apartments is really important. Again, I live in one of our apartments and they're virtually airtight, so the air exchange and heating to ensure you manage condensation when people are breathing and cooking and drying their laundry inside is really important. We've wet water half-sitting and on-site storage for irrigating the communal park next door, which we also have been refurbishing and landscaping to give it amenity for the users, but also for the local community. Low flow water fittings, and there's a solar array on the roof which powers common area services, which is lighting, lift and ventilation, and also a centralised hot water supply. That is also all of the hot water, centralised hot water and cold water supply is individually metered, so people don't take 3-hour-long showers on the basis that the neighbours are paying. We selected and used materials with recognised eco-labels in the process, including Firth's fly ash concrete, the Resine ECNZ range of paints, certified metal roofing and insulation solutions. Waste management practices in construction, which is a really important part of the process. There's an enormous amount of wastage that can occur in the construction process, and the process was aimed at both managing, reducing and recycling waste, and then all the occupants we've got again a centralised rubbish room and composting, etc. on site. And then the secure and covered scooter and bicycle parking, which provides people the opportunity to basically live a car-free life. It is an option given the location of the building. And again, living in Auckland, we all know our transport systems are slowly catching up with the rest of the world. But having lived in London and Sydney myself for 4 years without a car, it's possible to do, and the City Hop car share scheme means that when you aren't taking the main trunk route in and out of the city, you can nip over to see mum and dad on a Tuesday night or go and do your shopping on a Saturday morning, and it's all quite manageable. So those are kind of our key features there. It is fundamentally, Daisy is about providing another option for people. At Ockham, one of our strap lines is we're about providing homes that people love in places they want to live and at price points that they can afford. And the Daisy solution is part of the answer to that problem in our view. Oh, I've gotten you 1 minute and 8 seconds.
Yes.
So now I'm really honoured to invite someone that I really admire, Cam Perkins from Panuku Development Auckland. Cam has got a great experience with world-leading projects in Australia, but also champions brilliant urban design for Panuku Development Auckland and indeed throughout New Zealand. He's also, I'm a bit jealous to say, an exceptionally good dresser, so I'm always a bit jealous when I see him.
Green for go. Can everyone hear me? So Minister Twyford spoke at the 2018 Urban Design Conference, and there were 2 things that resonated with me. One, the recognition that we need to unleash the power of great design. And number 2, that building capability and expertise in the public service for urban development, urban design, and the built environment was a key requirement to get KiwiBuild and indeed our housing situation going. So I've got 6 minutes to show you how I think we can do that, using a living, breathing project as an example. And then I'll add one more thing to the list at the end that I think that we need to consider. So the survival of the human species, and more importantly, New Zealand's clean, green, 100% pure brand, depends on our collective capacity for guardianship and custodianship of the system that we play a tiny part in. In te reo, I'd call that kaitiakitanga. The world is currently rolling out Urbanism Project Phase 1.0. 70% of the world will live in urban environments by 2050. To have any chance of pulling off the greatest escape known to man, surviving climate change, the Urbanism Project needs an upgrade to version 2, because Captain Obvious up here could tell us that this one ain't working. Urban development must become the most sustainable model of inhabiting this planet. I'm not joking when I say that I believe that urban development could save the planet. I think the best way to do this at the moment, and the best framework we've got to do this at the moment, is Green Star Communities. It's one of the best large-scale environmental and sustainability frameworks we've got. One of the best projects in the world at the moment, and one of the largest scales. In fact, it's the largest single-owned mixed-use development in Australia is Aura. So this is being delivered by Stockland. It's on Queensland's Sunshine Coast. The original inhabitants of the Sunshine Coast knew something of kaitiakitanga. The Gubbi Gubbi people have lived here for 20,000 years under the basic principles of maintaining the land and traditions for future generations. Imagine that. I spent a number of years working with Stockland in the master planning team for this project, and most recently I led the public realm design for the first stage of 1,500 lots. Now this is a future city for about 50,000 people, 20,000 homes. It's Australia's largest 6-star Green Star Communities project. It has the world's highest environmental and livability standards for a future city. The site was heavily degraded over about 60 years for pine plantation and agriculture. Sound familiar? The master plan for Aura is founded on the respect for its unique setting and dedication to the celebration, conservation and rehabilitation of the assets of the site. Around 1/3 of the site's about 2,300 hectares. 700 hectares of that site is currently being rehabilitated back to Wallam Heath, which is one of the most biodiverse ecologies on the planet, and then designated as conservation area. It features the most advanced water management system ever installed in Australia in response to its proximity to the Ramsar-listed wetland of Pumicestone Passage on the Sunshine Coast. Water quality is measured daily, both in the site and downstream, all the way to the ocean. It's reported quarterly, on a quarterly basis, to the federal regulator because water quality is valued. Does that sound familiar? The master planning is predicated on a network of distinctive urban villages with integrated community hubs as the focal point of each village. Innovative delivery and governance methods mean that these focal points have co-located complementary community infrastructure with employment, education and, importantly, youth activation at the centre. Business innovation and incubator hubs stimulate the emergence of small businesses and boutique enterprises. A large number of the housing stock in this development are places where you can work from home. It's the Soho sort of arrangement. Each and every house sits within 400 metres of a local park, each and every house. Each and every house sits within 800 metres of a community garden. And it's all interconnected with 200 kilometres of bikeways. There's more bikeways in this city per capita than Copenhagen. I kid you not. This is how advanced this place is. Imagine if New Zealand's clean, green, 100% pure brand was actually the way we lived. It's possible. You can do it. Speaking of living green, every new resident to Aura gets a welcome pack. The welcome pack is a guide to living sustainably and being part of the community. So this includes a community resilience plan, fact sheets on being more water smart, energy smart and waste smart. It provides access to educational tools and peer-based learning. The aim is to actively include residents in co-creating a conscious community. Sustainable communities are prosperous. They drive business diversity, they drive innovation, they drive economic development, and they ensure a strong and resilient labour market. The project's all driven by the Green Star Communities Rating Tool, which you've heard a lot about today. It's a system evaluating environmental design and construction of buildings and communities based on peer-reviewed scientific analysis. Design unleashed with facts. It's a holistic approach. It recognises the power of the positive feedback loop. As for the capability and expertise in the public service that Minister Twyford is looking for, Green Star is a bloody great place to start. Staff can be accredited with in-house training. I'm a fully accredited Green Star professional. Panuku has just been recognised with our Green Star volume certification, which I'm incredibly proud about, and we've also mandated home star for all of our properties, which you saw Roger talking about before. Mandating these tools unleashes the power of design. It builds capability, it builds expertise within a framework that simply needs to be followed. So I've shown you a project that demonstrates that there is still hope for New Zealand's clean, green, 100% pure branding. But that relies largely on behaviour change. To do that requires an understanding of neurobiology and the evolutionary human reaction to change. My time's up, but that's the next thing that we need to talk about. If anyone wants to talk about behaviour change after this, come and get me. Thank you.
But I just thought, I'll just touch on something for a moment there. I think it's really important that we recognise somebody in amongst all that mix. Panuku Development in Auckland will be using Green Star communities across Manukau, Onehunga and other sites. And I just wanted to, a little shout out to someone pretty special on this agenda who's also championed 10,000 homes Panuku will be developing to Homestar standards, and that's Miranda James. I think just a little round of applause to say thank you for your leadership in this space. So another person leading in a number of ways is Rachelle Payne. I'm delighted to welcome her to the stage. Rachelle's a leader not just from her knowledge, but also for her fierce advocacy and also the brilliant work she's doing and proving it on her own home. So Rachelle, I welcome you to the stage. Thanks. Yes.
Hi everyone. In the hope or anticipation of avoiding some questions later on, I'm going to give you a quick 3-minute synopsis, well, 1-second synopsis of my background, just so I get a lot of questions saying, who are you, where are you from? So I started as an electrical engineer and hated it, so I moved straight into construction project management, and I worked in that field for around 10 years all around the world, and then moved full-time into green building. And overseas, I used to live in the Middle East, where green building was a bit of an issue. And at that time, I started collecting what I like to call my bouquet of qualifications. So I'm a LEED AP, a BREEAM assessor, a Green Star assessor, a Homestar assessor. I'm now a passive house consultant. I think the only flower I don't have in my bouquet is a neighbour's assessor. So that's why I'm here today to talk to you. I have a little bit of experience in green building, and I've also, which we'll touch on right at the end, completed some further education. So electrical engineer from Canterbury University. I've also completed a Masters of Property at Auckland University, where I looked into the construction cost or additional construction costs to achieve Green Star ratings, which is very interesting. There's a thesis on that if you want to have a nice big read. And I'm currently in my second year of my PhD at Auckland University as well, where I'm actually looking at green building rating tools again. I also work for a company called the Building Excellence Group, and I must admit I put together my presentation at the last minute on Monday morning, and I had not looked at the program for today, and I'm a little bit astounded at how my slides correlate to a lot of the talks that have happened today. So our company, the Building Excellence Group, we work a lot as Homestar assessors. We have completed an awful lot of Homestar assessments, so you could say we're some of the boots on the ground doing this work on a daily basis. I personally assessed the Hamuru Panuku project, so helped them get their 7 Homestar rating. I've also delivered the 6 Homestar rating on the Airfields project for Panuku, and I've also had done a lot of ratings on Housing New Zealand projects as well. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later on. Today, I'm actually not going to talk to you about any of that work. I'm going to talk to you about this project instead, which is called The Living House. Full disclosure, this is actually my personal house project, and it's been built in Beachlands. And we are attempting what we loosely call the trifecta of sustainability. So we are targeting 10 Homestar, passive house certification, and the reason we call it the Living House is because we're also targeting full Living Building Challenge certification. Now, we won't be the first passive house, we won't be the first 10 Homestar, but we hope to be the first residential Living Building Challenge house in New Zealand. We are also targeting LifeMark as well, so it's a big goal. The quick tour of the house, if you can see on the screen, there's a little 1-bedroom part. That's actually a 1-bedroom apartment that we are building for my mum. It's an attempt to look at intergenerational living, so when my mum becomes old and decrepit, she will move into that part of the house. At the speed the house is being built, it may actually just be ready for when we are old and decrepit and move into the house. But so what we're going to do before my mum moves in, we're going to rent it on Airbnb, because one of the problems with green building is a lot of people understand it, but it's very hard to touch and feel sometimes. You don't understand the difference between the comfort or the indoor air quality, and you can't see the materials as easily as you think you might. So our idea is to get it on Airbnb and ask people to come stay, come experience, and see what it's like. See if you want to build one of these for yourself. The main dwelling is 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, 2-story. And it has a bit of green bling, as you would expect from something that's doing that many certifications. Interestingly enough, some of the green bling has come about for different reasons, and some of them have had a long journey. The composting toilets in particular, when I first raised the idea of that with my husband, the answer was hell no. So the reason why, again, we want to do the bit of the Airbnb, which will have a composting toilet, is so people can come and experience that and see it's not that scary. I hope. But I wanted to give you a couple of lessons learned. As I say, I'm one of the boots on the ground. We've been working hard on the Living House project for a year now, and some of the lessons I learned, one of them I didn't even realize I learned, we just did it accidentally. And Living Building Challenge, zero waste, so zero construction waste. We're actually going to be trying to do zero operational waste as well, but this is zero construction waste. And for every architect in the room, I want to sort of point out to you all that waste starts with you guys. The very wall cladding that you choose to put in a house or a building locks into the construction of that building so much waste, and waste you won't even realise. If you look at the screen, you'll see a traditional wall construction for New Zealand, and that can have brick cladding, or it can have weatherboard, or some of those nice new wall claddings that we see around the place. But I've listed out on our website the different elements that go into building that up, and every single one of those materials comes with its own waste stream. So every product we've had delivered to site has come wrapped in packaging. And as a zero waste to landfill site, we have to deal with that packaging and get rid of it in a way that doesn't go to landfill. So we get really frustrated. And when people talk about waste in construction, I think you don't really realise that you're designing all that waste in every day you put pen to paper. And you can design a lot of it out in the way you think about your wall structures. So on the Living House, we're doing something most of you won't do. We're doing rammed earth. But we've managed to reduce our components of a wall down from, 14 to 6, and 3 of our materials are only there because we're doing passive house certification, and we need it for air tightness and thermal breaks. So architects, you have a lot of control over waste on a construction site that you may not actually think. Another lesson I learnt was keep asking questions. So we, some of you may or may not know that the Living Building Challenge has a red list of materials, things you can't use. Ran into problems with that, as you'd expect. One of the problems was we have a basement, and it's going to be the roof of the floor of the garage. And the material I wanted to use had a product on it that's on the red list. So, that's what we had consented. Trying to find different options, and I kept saying, could we use timber? Could we use timber? Structural engineers, no, until I finally wore them down, and we now have a timber floor structure. So keep asking, can I do this? Why can't I do it? And I never give up until I get a good answer to my why. If I haven't heard a good answer, I don't give up. Ditto for our on-site grey water discharge. So we were told, you can't do that in a city suburb. And I just went, of course I can. I'm going to do this. Sorry, Auckland Council, by the way. So I pestered Auckland Council, and after a very long period of time and a lot of Section 92 requests, quite a bit of time and money, we, I think, became the first project in Auckland to be granted a resource consent to discharge grey water on our rather small suburban site, which is only 693 metres squared. So I think it shows you, if you've got the will to do something, you can usually find a way. I'm going to run out of time, I'm going to talk fast. One other thing that I really tried to do with our house project is green loans. I actually emailed every bank in New Zealand and said, I want a green loan, I want a green mortgage, I'm building this awesome house, you should support this. I contact them through every single website on their contact forms, niente, no response. I thought, well, that's not good enough, I'm going to go to the top. So I emailed every CEO of every bank in New Zealand. I got responses, it was quite cool. And we actually ended up, I've banked with the same bank, I had banked with the same bank for 20 years. It started National Bank, started Countrywide, bought by National, ANZ. We ended up having to change banks because the only bank that wanted to work with us was ASB. And they came to the party big time. Wouldn't call it a green loan or an eco loan in that way, but they were willing to see the opportunities in our project and work with us because we were unusual and we couldn't give the guarantees that they normally want. So again, it is hard to be different, and the idea is just don't give up. Also, it doesn't need to cost the earth. Quickly, I'm so sorry, I'm running over time. That little bottom photo on the left-hand side is a whole pallet of bricks that my husband found about to be chucked into a skip bin. It had not been used ever. It was just the builder, don't need them, going to throw them away. So we rescued those, we're going to use those on our project, and we dumpster dive all the time. You won't do this on commercial projects, but just think about the stuff that you're throwing in the skips. And this is adding to the construction cost of every project that we do. And really quickly, I want to zoom back to Homestar off the Living House. You've heard a lot about reports and research into the cost of Homestar. Brands has just released in the last 2 weeks a very extensive study into the cost of Homestar as well, and recommend you read it if you're interested in this. But what I would like to say to the architects again in the room, I do a lot of Homestar assessments. You add to my costs for Homestar every time you decide to design a different typology into a project. Now, Panuku in their Haumaru project were fantastic. They had one typology, 20 dwellings in the apartment building. I only had to do one assessment. I get other projects across my desk, which might be 19 dwellings, 10 typologies. I have to do 10 different assessments, thermal analyses of these. So every time you decide on a project that's going to be of a certain number of dwellings to add a new typology, you are adding cost. If you've just got a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom house, just do one design for those. And then change, if you want to change it up architecturally, change the cladding, change the paint, keep the footprints the same, keep the walls the same. That will help reduce the cost of Homestar. She says massively.
Now it's delightful to welcome Olivia to the stage. Olivia is over from Australia, and I can say that I've seen the impact of the work of the sustainability team in Frasers in a number of ways. I met your chief executive, and he said off the bat that we have we've had a return from over $100 million worth of benefits as a result of being sustainable. I know that Frasers Green Stars everything that you build, every time you fit out, and everything that you manage. So it's a real delight to have you here to talk us through, your experience. So Olivia Leal Walker, and also just to note, also you are chair of the Future Green Leaders Advisory Committee in Australia also. So thanks so much for coming to speak.
Thanks very much. I also want to thank you, Cam, for warming the audience up to an Aussie accent. It's a bit rough this time of the afternoon. So, love language, partnerships for people, and future focus are essential elements to building better homes. I'm going to take you through examples of how these three areas have helped people live better, healthier lives at Fairwater, which is a Frasers Property Australia development. Love language. So to deliver better homes, we need to stop talking like a business and start using the same language as purchasers, the language of love. Fairwater was the first project that I ever worked on in residential. So it's a 38 hectare site. We've got about 10 hectares of open space, nearly 1,000 terraces. And we were so proud to achieve the first 6-star Green Star residential community rating in New South Wales. And we created a massive billboard to celebrate this fact, and we put it up on the main road. Then we produced this one-page sustainability handout which told people exactly how many dollars they're going to save a year by putting LEDs in their homes. And I don't think that one of them got handed out. So we changed our approach because we realised that that wasn't working. And so instead of promoting the sustainability initiatives of this site that we'd put so much effort into doing, we just spoke about how great it was to be able to walk to the shops or the train. Customers could walk in and feel the quality of our buildings. They didn't need to know the passive house rating that it got. The testimonials we received would say, we love the community feel. If you wanted to go for a walk, you can just do it within the community. And that is more powerful than saying that we've got tens of kilometres of walking tracks. Because what's being missed along the way is that my customer, and likely your customers, are the project teams that we serve as advisors and designers or engineers. But their customer are the people who are buying homes. And the people who are buying homes are doing so with their emotions. I have a friend, she told me the other week, she just bought a house and she spent less time choosing which house she was going to buy than she spent choosing which yogurt she was going to eat that week. So tools like Green Star communities are absolutely essential to be able to substantiate our social and environmental claims. And they can be really, really helpful in driving better outcomes. I highly recommend taking up this rating. But I also want to make sure that you ensure that you're tapping into your purchasers' emotions and treating them like people if we are going to create demand for better buildings. The second important element is enabling us to make better homes happen is partnerships for people. Places we create, they're more than just bricks and mortar. They're about jobs, communities, safety, well-being and education. Our industry has moved on from better performing buildings solely for the planet to also include better performing buildings for people. And you just have to look at something like Green Star Communities to see this expansion. To help us deliver better value for our customers, we've partnered with a number of community organisations. One of our most successful partnerships is with a program called Live Life Get Active, which offers free daily workout sessions delivered in public open space for our residents to use, but anybody in the broader community. And what we thought would be a great anti-obesity initiative has helped build communities and helps to serves to connect people. But wellbeing is broader than physical health. So we've recently launched a partnership with Smiling Mind, which is a not-for-profit that aims to improve mental health and mindfulness, and emphasis on school children through, it's basically a meditation-based app, and we've launched it out into 90 schools near our communities. So that's a benefit for the people who live in our communities, but it's also a better benefit for us because we've got greater customer awareness and loyalty. And adding to stress, and the reason we need more mental wellbeing, is housing affordability. The average home in Australia, or in Greater Sydney, is costing $1 million. At Ivanhoe, which is our new site, which is delivering 3,000 units, a partnership with Mission Australia means that over 950 of these will be social housing units and 128 affordable rental homes. This means 30% of the units will be social and affordable housing, peppered throughout the site, not just tucked away in some corner. But this can only be achieved through a partnership with Mission Australia, who will have staffed officers on site to assist in the delivery of support services and programs to strengthen this community. So there's a reason that Sustainable Development Goal number 17 is related directly to partnerships. It means we can create places where people live happier and healthier lives. It's better for our developments and it's better for the broader community. So we've sold our property using love language and we've supported a developing community using partnerships. It's now time to focus on the future and two megatrends that I think is really important. Climate change and my generation, your future thinkers. Resilience is not a sexy word, but we better think of a better way of explaining it pretty soon and communicating it because it should be at the heart of every development. We recognise that in a rapidly changing world, disruption to operation, assets and communities is much more likely. These disruptions demand more integrated responses. Accordingly, we've developed a company-wide climate resilience policy and framework because we understand that climate change is a risk to our business. Fairwater, which is on the outskirts of Sydney, is going to be more prone to heat stress. So we've really focused on reducing urban heat island effect here. One of the initiatives was to do white roofs, which was an initiative that came out of Green Star Communities. But also turning things that can be a concern into an opportunity. So Stormwater Management, the site, is a feature. It's this big, beautiful lake, which is better for biodiversity, better for people and open spaces, and helps keep them cool. The same site's also the largest community of buildings in the Southern Hemisphere, which uses geothermal to heat and cool the homes. And this helps from a resilience point of view because we're reducing the impact of grid stress during those heat waves that we have. But technology doesn't have to be the only solution. We're also making resilience fun. Again, we need to think of a better word. But by hosting community days with emergency services and increasing community preparedness. So that second megatrend is our changing workforce. In 2 years, 50% of the workplace will be millennials. You know, those avocado-eating, self-indulgent children of baby boomers. We're here. Surprise. If you tap into our skills, you could be at a distinct advantage. A resi community can take 5 to 10 years from design development to completion. And so that's when we're going to be buying our first or maybe second homes, and we're also looking to rent now. So we're looking for the opportunity to work flexibly now, but what does this mean for the communities that we're designing for the future? I'd like to see how we develop our communities taken one step further in that we have truly mixed-use neighbourhoods where we don't have to leave the postcode to go to work. And I really recommend tapping into your future thinkers, who are actually your current thinkers, and get them involved in your decision-making because they can offer you an advantage and it can also help develop their own careers. So at Fraser's Property, we're currently building better homes, such as those at Fairwater. But building relationships with people is what really enables us to build these quality, healthy places. So, learn to speak the language of your customers and get out of the building and talk to them. Rate your project with Green Star or Home Star. Not only does it provide your benchmark of your performance, but it verifies your claims. Look for ways to partner with not-for-profits and other organisations to deliver better outcomes for your projects together. And engage with your young people now to better design for their future. Together we can build better homes. Thanks.
A great summary. Thanks, Olivia. Well, you probably know him already, but Bob Burnett, really look forward to your presentation. Bob is not only an award-winning architect, but also an award-winning advocate for better, healthier homes, sharing that knowledge, getting thousands of people, even down in Christchurch, out and about looking at better homes. And all those homes of the Super Home Network are now going to be Homestar verified. So we look forward to your talk, Bob.
Okay. So yeah, I really enjoyed the summit so far, and you know, the theme is really interesting, and the theme of this session, you know, hammer and nails. I think it was originally called walking the walk and walking the talk. So yeah, why do we talk about this stuff so much and we don't do it? So I think the next session might unpack that a little bit, so I probably won't steal their thunder too much. But yeah, so we know why we need it. We know that our building code is 20 years behind in terms of thermal performance, and that's not okay. It's making us sick, so that's why we need it. So why aren't we taking action? Well, I think it's just awareness, you know, and you know, there's so many intelligent people here, there's so many experts here in what you do, and it's really encouraging. But I think a lot of the time we're sort of preaching to the choir, and we really need to get the message to consumers, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm sort of a bit like a dog with a bone, and I'm spending far too much time on doing that with the super home movement and not enough time on my day job, but it's working. So we know people want this. And yeah, so and there's sort of a personal reason, because after the earthquakes, I got tipped out of my house. I'm actually still waiting for my house to be repaired, and that's not okay either. But and I had to experience living in substandard housing and see how that affected the health of my children, and it was kind of a wake-up call, because I was living in a very energy efficient, warm, healthy house, and they were really badly affected. I now have a 7-year-old that has asthma, and a third of our 7-year-olds in New Zealand have asthma. That's not okay. So, Homestar, thank you very much, Andrew, for suggesting that the 12 homes on this year's Super Home Tour should be Homestar rated, and for supporting that and making that happen. Because it's really great for people to be able to visit a home and experience the warmth in a cold winter month and see what Homestar rating it achieved, and ask questions from the experts, the designers, the builders, and yeah, and ask what it cost. So I think the biggest hurdle for us is people think this stuff's too expensive. The 10-star home, this is the first 10-star home that was built almost 3 years ago now, so it's taken almost 3 years for the second 10-star home to be built, and it's another home in Christchurch by a Super Home participant, which is on this year's tour. So I put a map on your table. There might be not enough to go around, but it's got the homes on the tour, and I think this is a really important thing, showing exemplar demonstration projects and what can be achieved affordably. So the 10-star home in Christchurch, some of the things cost less to build, like the jib fix framing system, less timber, more insulation. Should be a no-brainer. Why aren't we doing that? There's a solar wall, solar collector that brings free pre-warmed air into the house. On a frosty morning, -0, we can get 27 degrees pre-warmed air into the house. And that's free. We have a cavity there anyway. We're just using that for something different. So the tour, I mentioned the tour. There's a bus tour this Friday where there's people flying from all around New Zealand to come down, and it was so popular that Christchurch City Council have booked 2 minibuses to ghost the bus. That's how into it they are. So Christchurch City Council have been instrumental in supporting super home movement tours, and they gave us a grant, Innovation Sustainability grant, to help with the cost of assessing the homes. So that was great. They've got behind Homestar, and they see the value of better homes for the residents, because 90% of people in Christchurch say their houses are too cold. There's some really people suffering in their homes. And, you know, I'd like to see more homes getting rated, and hopefully this is going to be a catalyst for that. You know, there's some sad statistics. Christchurch is the highest suicide rate in the world. And we're not doing very well. We sort of think we are, you know, CAM, 100% pure. Bullshit. Half of the landfill in Christchurch comes from construction. It doesn't need to happen. We didn't have a skip for the 10-star home. We separated stuff out. It wasn't difficult. It wasn't expensive. It's just communication. It's just thinking about it a bit differently. So people want this. It's just we need to create the awareness. And I think as architects and designers and builders, we know that it's right, but sometimes we don't talk to the consumers because we think they'd rather spend money on what they can see rather than the stuff they can't see. And we're all consumers here. So we all live in houses. And I think this is probably the most important agenda of our time, you know, that and climate change, which I hope is going to be a catalyst for us getting better houses. You know, what we build, what we design and build today, we really need to predict the future. And the thing about the future is there's a mammoth amount of challenges coming our way, and it's going to be really unpredictable. But we need to prepare for that. We need to do super renos. So I'm renovating my villa. It's ironical, but I'm living in a 1906 villa, which is cold as hell. And I built the first 10-star home, but that's actually our office. So just taking our existing, we've got 1 million unhealthy homes, taking our existing homes and renovating them so that they're satisfactory to live in will be a big piece of work, and that's really important. So Zane's house will be on this year's tour. We need to, running out of time, I just need to say, if anybody's got a house, I've already talked to someone from Wellington today, if anybody's got a house that's an exemplar that you want to put it on this year's tour, Auckland, we're doing a tour. Brands are supporting us, and I hope, I've been talking to Auckland City Council about doing the same thing that Christchurch has, because it just makes sense. Yeah, let me know. And that's about all I've got to say, and I'm exactly out of time. 1 second.
Well, I mean, the first thing to say is, I mean, what an honour, right, to be up here with these people who have really put time, effort, sweat and tears, hassles from radio journalists and all sorts of things to deliver a better quality living environment for New Zealanders. And I just think that this is pretty exciting. I think, don't you think? I think we can do another round of applause just to say kia kaha to you guys for the work that you're doing. I think that's valid. So I'd ask you to do that. Okay, so we have got a question up there with 4 votes for it. I'm going to put it across so that we each talk to it. Rachelle, that gives you the longest time to come up with a short answer to that. So what was the most significant challenge in doing what you set out to do? So I go from across that way. So you, Helen, then Cam, then Olivia, in terms of what you're trying to achieve with homes. So what was the most significant challenge, and what was the biggest benefit?
Okay. I just should say we didn't do it to piss Mike Hosking off. That was just an added bonus. I like to drive cars, but I like to drive them at Hampton and not crash. Probably the biggest challenge, one of the largest challenges, is actually the management of the systems around it. So we, for example, ordered FSC certified timber, and it was ordered, and it was, unfortunately, the wrong stuff was dispatched to site. When it got to site, no one knew to check it and send it back. By the time we worked that out, it was already installed. kind of seemed not really with the program to take it back out again and get some FSC stuff. That sort of seemed not quite with the idea. So the whole integration, great best laid plans of mice and men. There's an enormous amount of work that goes into the design and the concept, but then to actually deliver it, you've actually got to be, you need to keep going beyond the planning stage. The actual implementation, when you're in a construction environment, is pretty challenging.
Great. Okay. So Cam.
Yep, I've got three things. Fake news. Now I forgot my other two. No, that's right. Fake news, helping people deal with change. And I'll leave it at two, because I've forgotten the third one now, under pressure. So fake news, disrupting the way that people receive information to maintain this sort of status quo at the moment. That's a real problem that we all need to deal with, and science is the way to deal with that, and to arm ourselves with that. The other one from helping people to deal with change is, and that's linked to this idea of arming yourself with information, is helping people to process that information and process the need for change. And that's that neurobiological response, is understanding human beings. I think in a couple of generations we've forgotten how to deal with our fellow man. And if we could all do a little bit of work personally to work towards that from a mindfulness point of view, to practice empathy, we could go a long way towards changing the things we need to change. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Cam. I like two. It's more efficient.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Olivia.
I think from a cost point of view, doing Green Star at Fairwater was pricier, but we've taken so many lessons learned. So we are now doing Green Star on all of our developments, resi, commercial, industrial, the lot. But we've worked out ways to do it more efficiently, and so whether that's in-house capabilities or the like. So if you do a project and it's a bit more expensive, persevere and keep with it and see how you can try and fix that the next time. But I think the bigger challenge is more around communication. And I think how we're saying, we started off saying with solar at Fairwater, for example, you'll save X dollars over 5 years if you install solar up front. People don't take it up because, just as was previously mentioned through the day, they want their stone bench tops, so they want what they can get now. But once they've moved into their homes and they've lived there for a couple of years, they're coming back to us and asking about it. So if we could have got our message right up front, I think that's going to have bigger benefits from a cost point of view for our customers as well.
Great. Thank you. Bob?
I think you've stolen my thunder. I was going to say...
bloody Australians, come over here.
Communication. So we know information and communication. So, we know what the problems are. We know how to do it. And it's not an engineering problem. It's not a technical problem. It's a communication problem. Creating awareness and showing people, demonstrating to people, this is how we do it, is I think, really important. So, we're drowning in information. We've got a sea of information. It's just, we need knowledge. And where do we get that knowledge? That is the key thing.
Yeah, and I really like, I think if anything, the interesting elections in other countries, Brexit and America, has shown us that feelings matter more than facts. And so, in the way I think about that in terms of what we're thinking about today is I really like your work, because you're taking people to homes and saying, well, how does this feel? How does this look? And they feel it, right? And that's a real driver I think we can all learn from. Right? So, I really respect that. Rachelle, you've had 5 minutes to think of your answer. Talk us through the answer to the actual question, the anticipated...
I'm not going to do my challenge?
Well, do you have an answer to that? If not, you can...
I have a very short answer to that. Anticipated build cost, people ask me all the time. I have no idea. Construction project manager, budgets and programs are kind of my thing. I threw those out the window about 6 months ago and went, what's the point? It is just so crazy, and our rate of progress is glacial, so I've given up on that too. But I am happy to talk about compliance, because that was actually going to be my challenge, which for me, we first approached the project as a resource consent to subdivide the land, went into council and met with some fantastic resource planners at Auckland Council, and they really, really helped us. Discharge consent was very, very challenging. It's probably the biggest challenge we've faced to date, and the second biggest challenge is the red list materials. But with the discharge consent, the process that we had to go through and the number of different departments we had to talk to and try and help educate and communicate to them what we were doing, just to be turned around to go back to somewhere else, to go around again in another circle over here, to come back and then get a section 92 and then come back over here, and just, it was crazy. And then to reinvent all of that again at the building consent phase, because the information hadn't gone through. So we went from resource consent to discharge consent to building consent, and reinvented or reworked everything we'd done previously each time we tried to get a new consent out. So that was a huge challenge, and I will be honest, Auckland Council, the staff there are fantastic, and they really, really helped us, and they worked us through that process, but I do feel like that could be simplified, and that was a huge challenge to our project. And I think the council staff recognised that, because the very first person I spoke to about my discharge consent actually said to me, "Oh, your project sounds wonderful. I really wish we were going to be able to approve this for you." And I went, "Haven't even applied yet." Like, come on. And being stubborn and a bit of a nag, I just didn't give up, and I finally got a consent. So, yay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot. Well, I'm actually going to close it there. I think that was a brilliant summary, but people are around and we can put you in touch. But I did want to ask you something just based on that last question. So for about a year, we've been talking to councils, and we've found some councils are giving away reductions in development contributions for better buildings. That's Wellington Council, kia ora to them. Hamilton is providing increased height for Green Star buildings, which is, another leading step. So I wanted to ask you, given Rachelle's answer there about that issue she was having, I'd like a show of hands as to who think, it's a bit loaded, I'll give some background. Every single chief executive of a council in New Zealand has signed off to deliver lower carbon emissions and a more resilient future. So, you can ignore that if you like, but there's some background. Who thinks that councils, it would be helpful to encourage Homestar if development contributions were slightly reduced for Homestar homes?
No.
2 hands.
Ashley, stunned. Okay, who thinks it would be great if they offered quicker or more support through planning for Homestar homes? Can be more resilient. Jerome, first hand up. Awesome, I'll get you a beer. Hey, we're at 25,000 homes going through Homestar. It's partly from the brilliant work from these men and women, so really appreciate them. Thanks for your time. I look forward to the rest of the sessions this afternoon. Kia ora.